Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the Celtic Down Under Weekend Review. My name is Anthony Maguire, joined, as always, with Paul Massey as we dissect Celtic 3, Hearts 0. Paul, how was your action-packed weekend?
It was an action-packed Saturday. There was not much happened on Friday and Sunday, but I filled Saturday with enough to fill the whole weekend. So we had a local barbecue legend, Big Don in Perth, did a walk-up event for the first time in a couple of years, which was proper Texas style. You basically turn up as early as you think you want to, and the earlier you are, the more chance you have of getting what's on the menu. So yeah, me and a mate did that pretty early on Saturday. Cracked the first beer about 8:30 a.m. So it was nice and steady. And we ate barbecue about, I don't know, 11:30, 12-ish. And then I had a little lull in the mid-afternoon area for 2 or 3 hours before going out and seeing live music, which caused me to miss the first half of the match, unfortunately. But I got to, literally the gig venue was round the corner from the CSC, so I managed to gently persuade my wife that it might be a good idea to slip in there for the second half, which she unbelievably agreed to. So presumably the gin and tonics at the show had some influence on that. And we watched the second half in there, which was obviously a pretty relaxed affair given how well the first half went. Then was up the road by about midnight. So I rewatched the match back in full yesterday. Since obviously I missed the first half and the second half, I was slightly under the influence. So although I had paced myself pretty well all day, so it wasn't too bad. But yeah, really, really good day. What it was at a gig was a live double bill, the vaccines and everything, both touring together here from the UK. It was the first show of the tour, so strongly recommend anyone who's got an interest in either of those bands or hasn't that loves live music to try and find a ticket for the remaining shows. I think there are a few tickets at most venues still available, but both bands were brilliant. Music and Celtic are my two big passions, so unfortunately they clashed for an hour of crossover on Saturday, but it all worked out well in the end.
Sounds like you managed to keep it all together, because I must admit, rocking up at 6 a.m. for barbecue is a pretty big shout, but I believe we cooked about 2,500 kilos of meat.
About that, 2,500 to 3,000 kilos. He reckoned, given all the sides and additionals they did, they probably served the most Texas barbecue of any barbecue joint on the planet on Saturday, which is pretty impressive for little old Perth in the middle of nowhere.
I saw the drone footage of all the people. It was chaos. Like you were talking 3-4 hour waits just to get fed, and then some people obviously didn't get fed. Yeah,
some people were 5-6.
Wow.
Which is interesting enough, right? I rocked up, you outed me. I was there at 6 o'clock in the morning. He was advertised open at 12. I knew he'd be open 11:30.
Yeah.
Me and a mate haven't caught up for a while, so we had cups of teas and coffee when we got there at 6, and then we cracked the beers at 8:30, 9. And look, we just sat on our backsides and chatted and caught up for a few hours. There's worse ways to while a few hours away, and then we're front of the queue. And had our pick of the menu. So yeah, and then we stayed around, and there was live music on, and we had another couple of beers after we ate. But it was phenomenal atmosphere. But yeah, there were people that turned up at 12 because that's when they opened. Obviously, not knowing a whole lot about either Big Don or generally how Texas barbecue works, and people wait. And then moans that they had a 5 or 6 hour wait. Well, they could have had the same 5 or 6 hour wait if you got there early. In fact, I spoke to people who got there between 9 and 10, and they waited less than 3 hours, and they were served at lunchtime. So there was definitely a sweet spot. We took it to an extreme, but cracking day, and obviously most importantly, the boys got the win that we all wanted. So we should probably talk about that.
Well, I know it was. I think we were talking about Texas barbecue. Wrong podcast. So I had my parents up for the weekend, so I got to watch the game with Dad. Bit of a toss-up whether we're going to at the Celtic Club or not, so you were nearly there, but I had an early PT session on Sunday morning, so I thought better of it. And the comfort of the couch was the CFC for the evening. It was, as you say, Paul, a fairly comfortable affair as far as by Celtic standards this season. I think
we played for 90 minutes, which is we put on a performance for 90 minutes, which is a rare shift.
So the first thing was the fact that we named an unchanged starting lineup, which I think, we haven't done that too often this season. There's usually always one or two changes, usually because of injury or form, but we've managed to actually keep the same team. And then the only swap on the bench was Daiza Maeda making a welcome comeback to the bench. The healing factor knows no bounds in the place of Daniel Kelly, who dropped out of the squad. Got Jerry Burns just saying here, he's saying, how are we doing today? Yeah, pretty well. A little bit tired. I got up early to watch the Miami Grand Prix this morning. It was on at 4 a.m. Perth time. Lando Norris, first ever Formula One win, so not Max Verstappen. So that made it far more entertaining than it could have been. Great performance the weekend. Yes, we agree. And we'll be talking more about that in 2 seconds. And Mahesh is asking what was on the menu. Snags. Well,
but he always does brisket. So yeah, the Texas Trinity. So it's all ribs, all beef, pork, and lamb ribs, multiple snags, homemade brisket, birria tacos, which is a particular specialty, one of my favorites. Even turkey, which is really, really good. It just works. He had a ridiculous menu, and it was all obviously by the size. So yeah, you just build your own platter, and away you go.
Don, if you're listening, we're open to sponsorship. We'll happily talk about. I know he doesn't need it, but word of mouth, we'll help you get a few more punters in the door. Just sling some barbecue our way. All right, enough about barbecue. 420 somewhere saying hail to you. Yes, Paul. So unchanged lineup. Obviously, Maeda back in the squad. How are we feeling going at this one? Obviously, we were talking last week about Toki Iwata maybe getting that starting nod ahead of Cal McGregor, who appears to have been struggling recovering from Achilles injury. Obviously, McGregor started. Give us your thoughts on the starting lineup and just your thoughts about playing Hearts at home, because obviously third best team in the country. Shankland has just been announced in the last 24 hours as the player of the year. So obviously for his goal tally, interestingly played a bit deeper against us at times, which I don't quite understand, but whatevs. Take it away.
Well, yeah, we did talk about there was a toss up really. The main toss up was would Maeda be fit enough to start? We thought he would make the squad, but would he be fit enough to start? I think we all kind of leant towards, if he makes the squad, that's probably as much as you would expect, and maybe an appearance from the bench for a small cameo, 5 or 10 minutes, and obviously ended up being more than that. So that one sort of took care of itself. But yeah, you're right. Cal McGregor was the big one. We've spoke a bit last week at a bit of length as to whether there was something more serious that was sort of nagging and sort of making him struggle to play it at the full capacity that we're used to, or did he just need more time to play his way out of back into fitness and back into form? And it was really difficult to tell because it's really taken about a few games and he hasn't really looked anywhere near where we would expect. But there is obviously that the Celtic medical team will have had a better idea. But and we did mention that last week. We're sort of guessing. But my overarching feeling was if there was a chance of him playing his way into fitness, then you kind of have to give him that opportunity, given the game's still to come. And I'm really pleased that's what happened because he had a really good game, a really good game. But in general, thoughts going into it, it's as big a game in the league as any this season. There's a bit of revenge sort of in mind because they've beaten us the last 2 times and we haven't really, we didn't really show our best in either. And I think other things conspired against us as well. But I kind of fancied that, just in terms of how the squad has been, sounding, acting, responding, and just how important it was that we would get a result. I didn't know whether we would get both a performance and a result. You don't want to be too greedy at this time of the season, and as we've said, it's just been all about the points in these last few games. But I was reasonably confident with a full house and 3 o'clock on a Saturday, and all this stuff was talked about in the run up to the match. I was reasonably confident that we'd be bang up for it, and the crowd would get behind it, and the two things would happen together, and we'd get a result. As it turned out, we probably put together about as good a league performance as we have all season. And yeah, to my earlier sort of slightly tongue-in-cheek comment, I think it is one of the few times we've probably put a full 90-minute performance together, and actually we looked stronger. We obviously were ruthless first half. But we were better second half. The only thing we didn't really do second half was sort of take more chances. But the game was being managed at that point. I feel like if we really needed another goal or two, we could have turned up an extra gear. And obviously the third goal put the tin lid on it near the end. But I think 3-0 probably flattered hearts. It could have been 4 or 5.
My dad, don't forget the $10 Yes, I said what I would start. He was adamant McGregor would start. I'll deduct that off your board and lodgings next time you're staying up in Perth. William O'Toole, hail to you. Jerry Burns disagreeing with me there, saying Cal might look a lot sharper than he's been lately. Yep. And we've got Celtic Corner saying an 80-minute performance. I say that's probably about right, but I'd take 80 over 45. And I did say if we could manage 75, I'd say that would probably be enough to win our remaining league games. Paul, stat-wise, 8 shots on target to 2, 60% possession overall. We had 17 corner kicks. Admittedly, Hearts had 8, but we had a lot of corners. There was also a lot in the game in general. We had no offsides and 13 fouls to 7. They had 2 yellow cards to our none. And Joe Hart with 2 saves, which we'll touch on because they were quite critical at 2 key moments in the game. But you'd have to say, talking a bit about this 80-minute performance, you did feel for that first couple of minutes that Hearts did get out the blocks a bit quicker than us. We were probably just a wee bit slow to get started. We just didn't quite get our pressing right. And the first chance actually really did fall to Shankland, of all people, when you're sort of thinking this could be dangerous. I'm trying to remember who made the cutback, but they sort of got into a dangerous area, attacked our left flank, which seems to be, the modus operandi of most teams in Scotland. And Shankland gets his shot away, but probably not as much power and accuracy that you were probably expecting. But Kartovic just gets a slide in and settles the nerves out for a corner, but at least danger averted. But it didn't take us too long to get in the score sheet. No. And it's like, and realistically, you could classify it from a set piece because, we got the other end, get ourselves a corner. Matt O'Reilly whips it in, ball comes out. Xander Clark makes a decent fist of it and sort of clears it to the edge of the 18-yard box. Hatati's hovering, waiting, and he plays a chip pass back in, and Kyoto is the quickest to react, and 1-0. Xander Clark scrambling back, can't get back on his line quick enough to save it. And dream start, crowds rocking, and yeah, I mean, again, like I say, they went up the park, could have scored, and then, like I said, we pushed out the park and scored. I mean, it's a bit un-Celtic-like this season, but you take it. And yeah, it was like I said, it just got us, just settled the nerves, and then we started growing more into the game after that. What was your take on the goal? Because, like I said, the wee man was just electric, and he had a really good game on Saturday.
Yeah, he did. Just before that, I as well as Kartovic, I think Matt Riley get the first block in on the Shankland shot, and he was straight out of the traps with contribution, and he had another brilliant game as well. And I think any talk of his form being on the slide can sort of be pushed off now, because we've been talking for quite a few weeks that he's been playing his way back to some form, and he's right back up there as one of his best performances this season again. Before I get in the goal, corners, good pick up and right to highlight it. The thing I thought was interesting is instead of Matt Riley taking every single corner and every single set piece, we'd obviously been working on the training ground because we switched to in-swingers from both sides. So Rio Hatate first, and then I think Palma maybe later, late on in the game, was taking them swing with the right foot from the left side, and then O'Reilly was taking everything from the other side. And we caused problems from those set pieces. Yeah, we didn't probably score multiple goals from corners, but we certainly caused them trouble and pressure, and obviously generally added to our attacking intent. The goals textbook, Kyogo. Give him some service, he'll score you some goals. Who knew, right? I just can't believe it's taken us. I can't believe it's taken us as late in the season as this to sort of get him firing again. You can maybe say that he hasn't been quite on as good form, but he's not had service for good massive chunks this season. We used to moan a bit under Ange's time that we had this lethal finisher in Kyogo, and still a season and a half, 2 seasons down, there weren't enough players being able to pick his runs, because the runs are always there. It's just that he doesn't always get the ball. Hatate and O'Reilly found him for both goals, and he does what he did what he always does. He finishes. Hatate's is there's a couple of issues. Like, obviously Hearts leave him completely unmarked, which is a bit weird, and there's no press really on him. But it's really controlled by Hatate, because he could quite easily, shift that and have a crack. But he takes his time, and he lifts his head up and he picks out Kyogo perfectly. And the wee man, does what he does, running between players and tucks it away. Obviously, the place erupts, and then we have quite a lengthy VAR check. And I've seen a lot of commentary, that basically shows a lot of people don't know the offside rule for a start, looking for one player rather than the two. And also that he was blatantly onside. Now, I think if you were absolutely bang in line in the ground, you could probably call that, because I think in the TV footage it's a poor angle.
Yeah,
and Clark's foot is sort of obscured by Kyogo in the footage. But I reckon if you spun that round to looking dead across the line, you would probably see that the foot was a good bit further back. But it obviously was pretty tight, and that's what they're looking for. And they were crossing each other. One was coming out, the other was going in. And it was probably a lot closer than maybe it looked at first time in the naked eye. And like I say, I think a lot of people get confused about the rule because Shankland was on the line, and they're just looking for a defender to be ahead of him. But it's obviously two, and usually one of them's the keeper. But the keeper actually was further ahead. So, double cheer, because eventually it gets given. Look, the wee man deserved it. It's a great move, but it's a great poacher's goal, and it's a good header away from anyone else who was around.
I drew the short straw last night and was keeping tabs on the Rangers Kilmarnock game, and honest to God, the first 12 minutes there was like 3 VAR checks that took forever, forensically analysing to see if they could give Rangers a penalty. Was it offside? Was it not offside? Then Kilmarnock score a perfectly valid goal, and then they put that through the ringer for about 5 minutes trying to find a way to chalk that off. It was absurd. And then there was a handball shout that Dave Dickinson, in fairness, actually waved away. He got called to the monitor and actually said, no, that's not a penalty. So anyway, like I said, it's we just have to be at our best, because some very questionable re-refereeing going on at times. For some goals, and in other goals, nothing gets looked at. It's bizarre. Well, maybe it's not that bizarre, but I'll leave that there. Great goal, early doors, gets us on the right foot, and we're 1-0 up. And then I think the next main chance that sort of comes in that half is actually one that comes to Tammy Devlin, who actually forces an absolutely outstanding save from Joe Hart. He spreads himself, gets his left mitt to parry it away for a corner. But I tell you what, I thought it looked dead certain it was going in from the angle that I was watching. But Big Joe was up to the task, and again at a crucial moment, just keeps you lead bit of reassurance, and and like I said, a big moment in the game. We win 3-0, but these are the moments that get you to that 3-0. And Joe Hart, in fairness, has done this all season, particularly in the second half of the season. He's come up with important saves at nothing each, 1-0. When the games are tight and it's in the balance, he's pulling the sorts of saves that you'd expect. We expect your goalkeeper to make, but he's shown the class and experience that he does have. And as much as he's obviously getting on and he's retiring at the end of the season, he's trying to be some pretty big gloves to fill, both from a leadership point of view, and also just experience and just his ability, because he's still very quick to get the ball back in from goal kicks. He's still, you can see that he's sort of marshalling and managing the back line. But just like I said, that particular save was absolutely outstanding. And I'm sure Cammy Devlin thought it was down the back of the net, but it wasn't. And then it kept us at 1-0. And then it didn't take too long before we made it 2-0. But before we get onto that second goal, my dad sort of noticed something. I sort of agreed with him that during that first half, I kind of felt that Callum McGregor was actually playing a little bit further forward than Matt O'Reilly. So there was a period of the game in the first half where Matt O'Reilly was actually probably sitting as the deeper midfielder. And I don't know whether that was just a bit of in-game management between McGregor and O'Reilly, or whether that was Rodgers' instructions and he wanted to change it up a little bit. But there was times where McGregor was actually the highest central midfielder, and O'Reilly was actually a bit deeper. Because usually the thing was, in that sort of right-hand side is usually where O'Reilly sort of pops up, but he wasn't there because he was sitting that bit deeper. And it's actually where he picks the ball up to play the absolutely amazing crossfield long-range pass that he sort of drops on Kyogo's lap sort of thing. And then, like I say, Kyogo does what Kyogo does, sort of peels between the two defenders and goes, it hits it first time. I mean, the quality of the ball is exceptional, but the finish is probably even better, because that is just natural talent. And you could probably, you get in the park and you'd probably have a mate launch 20 balls at you over your shoulder, and you're probably lucky if you get one in the back of the net. The other 19 will probably spray every which way Sunday sort of thing, but just absolutely made no mistake of it whatsoever. And to be 2-0 up after about 22 minutes, you're kind of thinking, well, provided we don't do our game of two halves thing, you think it's going to be a reasonably comfortable day at the office.
Yeah, O'Reilly's pass is it's probably the pass of the season. It's absolutely inch perfect. It's exactly what I was, it's exactly what you've been screaming out for, and what I was talking about earlier on, where you just want somebody to pick a run and match the run with the quality of the pass. And now that O'Reilly and Hatate are both sort of purring again, and he's sort of making the runs that he always makes, it's there's really going to be more, there should be plenty more opportunities for him. Hatate put him through in the second half, which we'll get to. And that was a brilliant pass as well. But yeah, that one was absolutely brilliant. And you're right, over the shoulder, it's balls in the air a long time. And the wee man, it does great just to make a good solid connection. And to be honest, it's not right in the corner, but he catches it early enough that he sort of Sander Clark's a little bit flat-footed. And can't get down quick enough. I think he maybe gets a little bit to it, but obviously it's in, and it's it's low and it's hard, and as long as it's on target, he's probably going to score. So yeah, it's a really good finishing. But at that point, I think it's we've had two real chances, and he's taken both of them. Beyond that, I think I saw the stats at 30 minutes, which is obviously a bit after that, but it was pretty much dead equal. In fact, Hearts did more completed passes at that point. I think, give me 1 second. 104 passes for us to 130 completed passes for them. And they're sitting at 54.2 possession to 45.8. So after half an hour, they're edging the game. And probably in terms of final third, I didn't have those stats, but the final third would have probably showed them having more possession than our final third, and vice versa. And obviously, yeah, they've had a couple of half decent chances with the Shanklin one right at the beginning, and then obviously Devlin would expect to score, and as you said, Joe Hart pulls out an amazing save to keep us in a crucial point again. So yeah, like 22, 23 minutes into the game, in the balance of play, it should probably be 0-0 or 1-1, but as it stands, we're 2-0 to the good. And then we gradually work our way from there. And sort of from about 25, 30 minutes, we've really sorted out those gaps in midfield that were happening early on. Our press is better, it's more cohesive. And after that, we really don't offer Hearts too much. And obviously at 2-0, they've sort of had the stuffing knocked out of them a little bit. And they're probably feeling a little bit hard done to at that point, because, they'd had a good start to the game and they find themselves 2-0 behind. And yeah, there you go, Mahesh. It's nice to know that I'm on the same page. And then, yeah, from there, we go in and control it.
Yeah, no, it was. I think you're right. I think the second goal went in, and then the crowd got behind the team, and we were just lifted a couple of gears. And then we saw at the half. I think there was a shot from Forrest. I think he had a bit of a shot before the end of half time.
Taylor, I think it was it not?
That was it. Taylor, sorry, yeah,
Taylor from the edge. Kuhn had a good little run, and then worth a mention. I think Kuhn didn't have a really good game, if I'm being brutally honest. But he's also a little bit frustrating, and he has been he's shown flashes of quality play, and he has contributed. But one of the things that has been frustrating since he picked up a little bit of form is just that reluctance to shoot. He's obviously stronger on his left side. That's why he's playing on the right. Brendan Rodgers wants his wingers to be able to cut in and shoot. And he just always seems to pass up that opportunity. It's very rare that he gets a shot away. And that one you're talking about is a perfect example. He gets on a good run, he cuts across the box, and he probably has a couple of opportunities where he could just shift it and hit it. And he sort of hesitates, and then he rolls it off to Taylor. And Taylor, the fullback gets it out from underneath his feet and has a decent dig. It's probably too near the keeper, and Xander Clark makes a comfortable save. But you're asking for your winger to be hitting that shot, not your fullback. So yeah, I would, I'm jumping the gun here, but I think Kuhn's shirt's in jeopardy for the derby game, because
I'll give you the juxtaposition between Kuhn and James Forrest. James Forrest will just do the direct thing more often than not. He'll rattle the ball off the defender and get a corner. He'll go to the byline, try and get a cross in. He'll either get his cross in, or it's a corner kick. Or he'll cut inside the other way and get a shot away, or at least do something with intent. Kuhn seems to be determined to try and walk things into the goal. So either be it take too many touches on the edge of the box to try and get a shot away, or if he does actually go to the byline, he was in a position where all he had to do was cut it back, and he ended up just like almost dribbling out the park or got tackled. And so I looked at those two, and I just think Kuhn could learn something from James Forrest. 1 or 2 less touches, a little bit more direct, and I think his game would go up a gear. I think he's capable of doing it, but at the moment he just seems very content to keep like having extra touches, and I just think that it slows it down. It just gives opposition a chance to get a block in, or just arrange themselves a little bit more, sort of thing. It just needs to be a little bit more direct. But I agree. I think we Maeda coming back in, and obviously we'll get into the substitutes in the second half in a minute. But if Maeda's fit against Rangers, he's a no-brainer on that left-hand side, because he just absolutely terrorizes Tavernier. We've been talking about it for weeks in the group chat, and it's just the fear on Tavernier when he probably found out that Maeda's actually not out for the season. He's probably, the word disappointed probably springs to mind. So I definitely think that you've got Brendan Rodgers will have a decision to make between James Forrest and Kuhn for that right wing. I can't see Yang making a claim because he didn't get a look in, and Palmer didn't. Again, jump the gun here, but I didn't feel that he was overly influential when he came off the bench. So I think, and Monty agrees with me because he's just yelling in the background. He's saying, "Yeah, I agree." So yeah, so like I said, that's an interesting one for the week
I think
ahead.
while
Yep.
we're talking about wingers,
Yep.
it was interesting. There was a lot of interchange between Kuhn and Forrest. I think they swapped sides multiple times in the first half, and again, I think in the start of the second half as well. So it's good to see a bit of variety in there. Not that I think it made a massive impact when either was on the opposite wing, but it's just good to see that variety being mixed into the play. The other thing I think Kuhn could benefit from from Forrest is the press. I thought James Forrest's press was really really good, really aggressive, and worked well in the unit in terms of his overall pressing game. Last point I'll make on Forrest while we're on it. 33 minutes, high boot, no punishment, no VAR check as far as we can see.
Just let me bring this comment in here from Jerry Burns saying, I thought the referee was a bit lenient with some of the defending by the Hearts players. I thought Shanklin was lucky not to receive a second yellow. I know the one you're talking about, Jerry, because he picked up a yellow card early doors in the 18th minute, and then he put in a fairly hefty challenge, I think, just before half time that on another day could have been a booking. So that would have been a second yellow. And then miraculously, when he was doing a Connor Golson impersonation in the box, no yellow card for that either. Funny that. But yeah, Clancy was letting a lot go early.
Yeah.
And then, but again, where's VAR getting involved with that? Because they didn't seem to have a problem getting involved in a Tynecastle when Yang got done for.
I think the only difference is that, and I think, forgive me if I get this wrong, but I think it was Cochrane.
It was Tynecastle.
Yeah, but Cochrane goes down holding his face like he's shot, and he's barely touched. Like he's been wafted at best. And meanwhile, it happens to James Forrest. It's identical, and Forrest just gets up, gets on with it, and brushes it off. But they're nearly identical in terms of where the boot is, where the ball is, how close to your face it is. And look, it just shows once again the complete lack of consistency. Now, I don't think either of them are a sending off, but one was and one wasn't. And funnily enough, it went against us. And I guess while we're talking about VAR refereeing games and decisions, there's a couple other points that I think are worth making. I think Cammy Devlin was lucky to stay on the park. The one he gets booked for is his second big foul. There's a pretty bad one in the first half, and again,
he got the talking to because the referee waved play on.
Yeah, it was late, and then he allows it to play on, and then he just has a word. It's a booking all day long. That's a booking all day long, and I get what he's doing. He's trying to avoid. Because Cammy Devlin is a stick-on for a yellow card every match. So he's trying to avoid having to make a more difficult decision later on and send them off. And he clatters Matt O'Reilly in the second half and he gets a yellow, but he's not able to make that foul if he gets punished early on. And we've had these conversations a lot over the season.
Happens to us nearly every week.
The referees let pretty significant fouls go and allow players to continue to foul with impunity and then eventually punish them. But if you punish them at the first major offence, then they've got to change the structure of that. Yeah, they've got to change the structure of the game. They can't go in as heavily. They've got to think about what they're going to do. They can't have the little tug on the shirt. And to the point that Jerry Burns made earlier on, he's absolutely spot on. There was lots of little sharp holes, there's one, I think, was it on Alistair Johnston in the second half? It was like arm wrapped around him.
Yes.
And no foul, no booking. Hearts actually go up the other end and nearly have a dangerous chance.
Yeah.
And he's right in front of the linesman. The referee's 10, 15 yards away. There were little, and the falling over. Like anytime there was.
Oh, there was one in the top
in a corner.
Yeah.
In a corner, they just collapse in a heap. Yeah, you'll have a foul for that. I think there was one in the second half. Vargas was backing in again. I think to Alistair Johnston, and Alistair Johnston is literally backing away with him. And he's just obviously backed a bit and assumed he might stand his ground and fell over. And by this point, Alistair Johnston's half a yard away from him. And he gets blown up for a foul again. And he's incredulous, and rightly so. There's literally no foul there. Like, you can't just back in and fall over and that's a foul. You've got to have some sort of pressure coming back or wrestle or contact. I thought Clancy let a lot go, and most of it wasn't in our favour. And the last one I wanted to mention on VAR, and we're not really here to speak about the other lot, but I did catch their highlights because I'd seen that there was a double punishment penalty red card. I think what that shows is two things. One, the handball rules are farce because if you deem it to be a handball that's stopping a goal scoring opportunity, you've got to do both. That's the rule. There's no intent or non-intent. It's if you feel like they're stopping a goal, which is open to interpretation, by the way. It depends on whether you think their arms are in a natural position or not. But if you, it's like double jeopardy. If you decide it's stopped a goal scoring opportunity by means of a foul with the arm, then yep, it's a penalty, and you've also got to walk. Now, the one that it's identical to is the St Johnstone one from a few weeks back.
And we got nothing.
We got zip, right? And I've also seen a few of the refereeing podcasts chatting about this today, and seem to be all in agreement that both incidents are pretty much identical. And it really but the penalty the penalty rule is so open to interpretation that you can say on both of them, well, it's ball to hand, there's nothing you can do about it, natural position, play on, away you go. Or you can say it stopped a definite goal scoring opportunity, and there you go. I think in both cases, the St Johnstone one, he turns around and he does make his elbow sticking out. He makes his body bigger and it hits him on the elbow. On this one, he's sort of falling backwards and his arm comes away from his body, which is a completely natural movement when you're off balance. Your arm's going to lift up. So to me, they're almost identical. But yeah, again, one's gone one way and one's gone the other, and it seems interesting that that's the case. But let's hope that VAR's not a major factor next weekend. I feel like
this is it. We just have to, like I said, if we play like we did against Hearts, I've no doubt that we'll get the 3 points against Rangers, because as much as I'm glib about all the VAR checks and things like that, it took them until the 53rd minute, which was literally the last minute of injury time in the first half, for them to equalise against 10 men at home. And they are just a bunch of long ball merchants. They just pump the ball in long. They set the ball in the box, either hoping for a foul, hoping for a penalty, hoping for just a mistake, basically. And that's kind of their game plan. They really don't do all that much else. And I think, Liam Scales, we've been critical of him, but the one thing he does tend to do is when he's under the cosh, he does tend to defend pretty well. He gets the blocks in, gets the headers in under pressure normally. So, I think that will take care of itself and suit us. But that team's there to be exposed. Barisic is back playing at left back. So, that's a weakness. If Maeda's fit and we get him starting, and, he'll be squaring up against Tavernier again, and he'll have nightmares from the last time we played them. So I just think that if we play anything like ourselves and we've got the crowd behind us and they've got no support, then, they've got to come to Parkhead and get a win. Ultimately we can settle for a draw if that's what ends up happening. But, we have the luxury of determining our own sort of destiny. So I just, like I said, as much as I was watching it just to see if they would drop points, part of it was actually just watching to see how they're lining up and what they were playing like. But yeah, obviously they end up running away 4-1 winners. But when you play against 10 men for most of the match, that is to be expected eventually. But it was a massive huff and puff effort up until about the 60th minute when the second goal went in. So they're definitely not giving me any sleepless nights. And Clement's taking the bait on Brendan Rodgers' post-match comment. He said, we're gonna go out and have a bit of fun, which, you can read into that any way you want, but, old Phil's taking it hook, line and sinker and bitten down on it. So, he's too busy worried about his next headline rather than, what's actually going on in the park. So the longer that continues, the better, because Brendan seems to be in a good place and the team seems to be in a good place. So, we're peaking at the right time, which, is a function of all our players coming back and not having anybody out injured. But it's just, I think, part of that in that second half was Callum McGregor, because at 2-0, he made a lung-busting run back into defence and put in the double tackle to win the ball back, and immediately you just thought, he's back. The crowd was roaring. I think Brendan Rodgers was almost like celebrating like it was a goal. It's just a sign that, form's temporary, class is permanent. But, he just looked the player that we know he's capable of being. So maybe he's starting to shake this Achilles thing, and, he's getting back there. But that midfield was absolutely buzzing in that second half. The three of them were just absolutely electric. The ball was moved around at a very good pace. I just think that will just be too much for anybody in Scotland to deal with the rest of the season if we can maintain that intensity for the next 3 or 4 games until the end of the season. But it was good to watch. There's 93 people live at the moment. So again, if you're watching, please like and subscribe to the channel. There is a video obviously on YouTube if you're watching, so please like that so that other like-minded Celts can see us. We're on the rundown to the end of the season. We'll be doing every game on a Monday night from now until the Cup final against that team in blue. Paul, we ended up going 3-0 near the end with a penalty kick from, like as I've already mentioned, a bit of a double dribble from Lawrence Shankland's. Didn't really get up to too much in the second half to do Lawrence. Maybe should have put his big massive head on the ball, but decided to stick his arm up instead. No complaints. The only complaint I've got is how the referee didn't actually see it in real time, because he was in a reasonable enough position to see it. But there was a big shout from all the Celtic players, and obviously VAR got involved. And like I said, it was the quickest send to the monitor you've ever seen in your life. It was like literally it was sub 15 seconds. It was like, you better take a look at this, David. Like, you've missed one. And up steps Matt O'Reilly.
Well, the first 30 rows of the Jockstein stand claimed for it, so I'm not sure how Kevin Clancy missed it. And Shankland himself looked guilty as sin, and knew what was coming sooner or later. So thankfully Nick Walsh had his eyes open, since old Clancy didn't. And then Matty O'Reilly. I think when we were having all our penalty woes at the beginning, first half of the season, I said, where was he? Once. I said more than once. Why is Matt O'Reilly not on them? He's the best striker of a ball at the club. He should be on them. Look, maybe he didn't fancy him at that time, but given how he was flying and on form, you'd be surprised if he wasn't feeling confident back then. But he's that's what, third or fourth, I think, now, and everyone's been a peach. And this was another cracker. Smashed it right in the top corner. Great kind of double celebration, one with the fans, one with his teammates. And like I said earlier, I sort of put the tin lid on it and settled any remaining nerves. You're right, the midfield was purring first half. But going back to McGregor, I thought McGregor looked good, right? Even early in the first half when we were under the cosh a little bit, he was there breaking up play. He was in nicking balls and closing down and showing and being available for little 1-2s to play ourselves out of trouble. So you just kind of got the feeling quite early on that he was looking a bit more up for it. He was back to his sort of leadership role of sort of running into space and dropping deep and even if he's not the one receiving, telling the player on the ball where it needs to go and sort of directing traffic. And then, you're right. The one in the 56th minute is celebrated like a goal, and it's back to his imperious best. He just, I think it was Vargas he chased down there. That's pretty much the fastest player in their team and one of the fastest players on the pitch. And he didn't have a head start on him, and he caught him and gets back. Wins it not once, but twice. And just real level of intensity that you want. And we came flying out of the traps second half. We started a bit slowly first half, but we were right out of the traps and on it. I think we won our first corner inside a minute. There's multiple bits of good play in that first half. I know Hearts only down as 2 saves. I think technically the Vargas one is probably not listed in there because he was flagged offside. But I think if that had gone in the net, he'd have probably been onside.
I think he was onside.
I think he was onside. He got flagged. So that save was brilliant by Hart. Again at 2-0, but wouldn't have been recognised in the stats because technically he was flagged as offside. So there's really 3 great saves from him on the day. And yeah, like there's just after the Callum McGregor tackle, there's the double chance for Hatate and Matt O'Reilly. Xander Clark makes a good double save. We should probably score there. And yeah, look, I think the other big point in the second half is the reception for Dyson Maeda, because again, that was like maybe fine. There's a lot, because he's a player who splits the support, and one of the things we've always said on here is, if he had the full package, then he wouldn't be playing for Celtic. He'd be playing at a much more rich league for a fatter wage packet. But he isn't the complete package. But what he does offer is you really miss it when it's not there. And I think finally a lot of the Celtic fan base have begun to appreciate that, and sort of absence makes the heart grow fonder. And I think just because it was quite unexpected that we would get him back this season, and that we know how important he is, especially in the derby matches, the reception he got on when he came back into the team and back onto the pitch was, nearly took the roof off with that one as well. And I know that he sort of was on social media afterwards and sort of thanking the fans for that reception. But, he looked like he was right back up to full speed. His press was amazing. He was sort of getting in behind. He was buzzing. He was closing players down. I think he's an absolute stick on to start next week. He'll have another week under his belt on the training ground. He will absolutely start next week, barring for any catastrophe on the training pitch this week. And I wouldn't be surprised if he goes deep as well, 75, 80 minutes. Unless the job's done long before then. But would be good if it was.
If he scores a hat trick in the first half, we can take him off. But yeah, I agree. But no, his athleticism is elite. Like his crossing and his finishing can sometimes let him down at times. He still is capable of scoring fantastic goals and whipping in fantastic crosses. It just doesn't happen every time. But what you do get every time is just 150% Energizer Bunny effort, like just harrying and chasing down defenders. And, if you're playing fullback and you've just played, 60, 70 minutes up against James Forrest and Nicholas Kuhn, and all of a sudden he comes on, you must just be thinking, sub me off. You don't want to be chasing that for the last 20, 25 minutes of a match. But he's just, like I said, that intensity and that pressure and that press that he gives you is elite. That is elite level. He
had two or three key sort of bits of play he was involved in as well in that 20-minute cameo. Like I was talking about referee decisions earlier. Atkinson, who was up against Maeda, he's another one. He's another one who was lucky to stay on the park. He pulls Maeda back on the edge of the box. Now it's probably just outside the box, but he pulls him back. No foul, no card. Now, for me, every time you get a deliberate pullback, it's nearly always a yellow. So no, doesn't even get the foul. I think he wears play on, but there's not really an advantage.
It broke down.
And he could have brought it back. I think shortly thereafter, there's a Hearts attack that's very similar, and he pulls it back for them. So it's just inconsistent again. But that one could have easily been a yellow. And then not long after that, he pretends he's fouled and grabs the ball while he's on the ground, deliberate handball. And he's not been fouled, and he gets a foul given against him for the handball. But again, no yellow card. So that there's two pretty clear yellow cards that the ref decides just to sort of, well, are we just letting them away with them because they're getting beat 2-0 at Celtic Park at the time?
Feeling sorry.
Yeah. And then there was another, like right at the death, Palmer made a brilliant cross-field pass from the right to Maeda and sort of puts him in, and he's sort of closed out. But there was enough there to sort of show that he looks like he's not one of these players who seems to need like time to get back up to speed. As you say, he's an elite athlete, and he looked right back on it. So yeah, fingers crossed, another week of training, and he's fit to start on Saturday, because he'll be a key player.
William O'Toole saying it is too far to see a pattern in the match officials to help one team in the title race in both games at the weekend. I'll do the John Dow Thomason go, well, you're clever enough. You're clever boys. You can figure that one out. And he says, I love the cat, by the way. I love Monty too. Just occasionally he gets a little bit too lippy for the podcast, and I've got to sort of hold him in my lap so he shuts up. Otherwise, all you'll be hearing is him meowing in the background for an hour. Paul, amazingly, we are at the 50-minute mark already, so this has gone fairly quickly. I don't actually know where the time's gone tonight. Sometimes it feels like
we spent 10 minutes talking about barbecue, didn't we?
Well, we did. Maybe that was it. But we are getting closer to the end. Obviously, a few substitutions. Just briefly, I'll just mention them. So we had Iwata come on at the 71st minute for Rio Itati. Then we had Maeda coming on for Kuhn, and Idak coming on for Kyogo Furuhashi, and then late on, Palmer coming on for Forrest, and then Bernardo coming on for Cal McGregor, which I don't actually remember because I'd probably had too much wine by then, but that was in the 89th minute. Any sort of substitutes? Obviously, we've talked a lot about Maeda, but anything else sort of catch your eye, or anything else that you want to talk about in the game that we haven't mentioned already?
Well, Tomoki Iwata just gives you that bit of a reassurance. It's interesting you were mentioning O'Reilly dropping early in the game. I thought he dropped next to Iwata for that late period. He was sometimes deeper than Iwata. He was picking the ball up off Joe Hart or the centre backs, and just sort of interchanging in that cover position. And obviously he's done that before when McGregor was out injured last season, and he's obviously got the range of passing to start things off from there as well. So yeah, I thought Iwata did what he does. He sort of closed down space, and he covers the ground well, and he just kind of professionally helped sort of shut the game down and close it out. As I said, Palmer had that one decent pass, and he had a couple of corners. One was decent, one was awful. I think it was his corner that the Shankland penalty came from. But then he had one not long afterwards, which basically trundled along the ground and just got cleared easily. So again, he's sort of not getting the game time to get himself back up to speed, but it's going to be hard for him to get a jersey at the minute with how good the couple of the other wingers are playing. And obviously if he was going to get on Kuhn's side, then he's obviously sort of, that's not his preferred side. Ida was decent. He linked the play up. He brought some players into. He held the ball up well. Didn't get his goal this time, but he always offers you something different. And the game was pretty much won when he came on. So get the wee man off and wrap him in cotton wool for another big one next week. So yeah, I think everybody contributed. I generally thought it was a really good team and squad performance. There wasn't, we've talked about Kuhn being a little bit anonymous, but beyond him, I think everybody else pretty much gets more than pass marks, I would say, for the performance. And there was quite a lot of high performers, which gives you a nice segue into the man of the match.
It does.
Do you want to start that, or do you want me to?
Well, I was... Sean, who's has obviously been on the pod for a long time and is sort of comes on every once in a while now, but he put a poll up, and I was sort of thinking about it. I like to sort of mull it for 24 hours or so. So I think initially, on the moment, I was sort of thinking Kyogo, because 2 goals. He was dangerous every time the ball was played forward. He just seemed to get into the right areas, and he looked really good. And I went, okay, I'll have a bit of think about it. And sort of over the next sort of 24 hours today as well, I sort of think that Matt O'Reilly was my man of the match. I just think that he had an all-round fantastic performance. The assist for the goal was exceptional. He scores a really good penalty. His set pieces in general were better. I think maybe in part because he wasn't expected to take every single one of them. I think the fact that they spread it around a little bit just takes the pressure off a little bit. So then when you are delivering it, you generally hopefully delivering a better ball. So no, I think he was very deserving. And like I said, his ability to drop into various roles and spaces within the midfield and within the team, I think just helped at various points throughout the match. So for me, like you say, Paul, anyone who's saying that he's dropped off, I think in the last month he's picked himself back up again, and he's up for the running, and that's what we need. We need match winners, and he's one of them.
Well, there's a lot of honourable. I'd say there's definitely a lot of honourable mentions. Joe Hart had three big saves, as we touched on. Again, especially the Devlin one at a crucial point. Not that I would necessarily say he was in the running for man of the match, but Alistair Johnston is right back on a game. I thought he had his best game in weeks and weeks. He was solid defensively, but yeah, he had good energy going forward. I feel like we've had some sort of up and down performances from him, nothing really too consistent. So I thought he had a very good game. Cameron Carter-Vickers wasn't asked to do too much. They didn't have that much attacking intent, but what he did really well. He's just a big bully, and he did that again. He bullies players off the ball, and he just uses his body strength really well. McGregor, for me, I think there's not been as much talk as I would have expected on his resurgence in terms of his performance. I thought he had a really, really good game, like back to, I think maybe because that's what we kind of expect from him, but he's been so far off it since he came back from the injury that I thought he had a really, really good performance. Kyogo, obviously, a couple of great goals and could have had more. Like, they had that chance late on or mid-second half, and he probably should have looked for Forrest, but when you're on a hat-trick, I think you're entitled to go for it. But I agree with you. Matt O'Reilly set the tone from the first minute when he blocked Shanklin's shot and he's right out the traps. Then, he was great throughout. His pass for the goals, world class. His penalties, just coolness personified, and he's absolutely right back on it. And will be super crucial over the remaining games. So yeah, we're in absolute agreement this week. It's Matt O'Reilly for me too.
Yes, and Monty agrees as well. And I think the crowd in the gallery are all in agreement. So Celtic Corner saying Matt O'Reilly, and then Mahesh is also saying here O'Reilly hands down, 4 chances created, and attacking contribution are around 1.7 goals. I'll go first on our recommendations this week. So two things. One thing I want to say is more of a comment, but ex-junior Celt, Ryan Mullen, goalkeeper who played for the youth sides, he signed this season for Greenock Morton, and he won Young Player of the Year for the team on the weekend. So I wanted to congratulate my cousin Ryan, and managed to play most of the season. He's had a pretty tough run with injuries over the last 3 or 4 years. So the fact that he managed to play most of the season and string it together, and he was largely responsible for the clean sheets that got them into the top 4. Unfortunately, didn't manage to stay there. Unfortunately, injuries to him and George Oakley, who was their player of the season, their striker, unfortunately curtailed the season a bit, and they end up finishing sort of mid-table-ish. But yeah, no, he deserves that because he's had to fight against a lot of adversity to get back playing again. So yeah, well done to him. And as far as a recommendation for TV this week, I wanted to go with Clarkson's Farm season 3. He's a prat, but he's a funny prat, and he's Offsider Caleb, still the funniest reality TV character you probably ever meet. So yeah, it's a good watch, and it's easy sort of just to sort of switch off and plug a couple of episodes of that on. So that's my TV recommendation for this week. Paul, over to you. What you got for us?
Did you binge Blue Lights? Did you get through second season?
Not yet. No. I've actually tell a lie. The one thing I did binge watch this week was Baby Reindeer.
Right.
So I did watch that this week. That was what we got through. And I'm sorry, I should have mentioned that as well. That was the thing I watched. And if you haven't watched it yet, I do recommend it. It's a little bit like watching a bit of a car crash. Like, it is sort of like, but if you get into it, it's pretty confronting, and it's a compelling story. And not too much of a spoiler, but the guy who actually plays the lead character is actually who the story's about. So it's quite incredible for him to relive all that.
Yeah, it's kind of super brave, to be honest, and kind of a bit mad, to be honest. And
yeah,
you just get the impression that he's sort of therapizing himself by doing that, and he's still sort of going through dealing with it as well from the aftermath, from what I can gather. So yeah, well worth a watch. My recommendation.
I'm pretty sure Martha's a Hun as well, but anyway.
Well, yeah. It's a great performance by is it Gunning? Can't remember her first name. Really good performance by her. I've only ever seen her in the Outlaws, which is a thing written by Stephen Merchant, which is kind of a bit of more of a comedy drama show. She plays a bit comedic character in that, and she's from I think she's from Huddersfield home first.
She's English, yeah. She's not Scottish.
So she's done a pretty good Scottish accent. A couple of quick recommendations. So I've just watched the first episode of that show on Apple TV called Sugar, which is the Colin Farrell private detective thing. Only one episode. They're relatively short episodes, 35, 40 minutes. But yeah, pretty intriguing and well shot and well acted. So looking forward to getting into that. I think it's an 8-episode season and 7 are out already. So the next one will be out pretty soon. That's Apple TV. Music recommendation of the week is the new album from Frank Turner, Undefeated, came out on Friday. It's his 10th studio album. And it's a bit of a mix of genre, which sort of kind of covers a bunch of his career. So yeah, if you've not come across Frank Turner, give him a listen. Undefeated is the album, and in celebration of that and Record Store Day week, whatever, he did, I think 15 gigs in 15 cities or towns and cities across like a 24-hour period, I think, on Saturday. So yeah, a bit mental. They were all like sort of 20-minute, 30-minute shows. And they weren't all down south. He sort of rattled around the country a bit. But yeah, Frank Turner's a bit of a head case. I think he's been going for just 17 years and he's close to 3,000 shows. And he's averaging, I think, an album every 1.5 to 2 years. So he's an absolute workhorse. But yeah, Frank Turner, Undefeated, my album of the week.
One, I've actually got a music recommendation as well. So the Southern River Band, I used to play football with the lead singer, Callum Kramer. They are a mad local rock band here from Perth, Western Australia. They're actually doing a tour of the UK at the moment. So they will be at King Tut's in Glasgow on the 1st of July. Get your tickets because they are mental. So they've done a support act for The Darkness when they toured pre-COVID, and Justin Hawkins highly recommends their absolute rock album. So yeah, so definitely if you're into your rock, they've got a lot of character and well worth a watch live. Southern River Band. So there you go. That's my musical recommendation. So they're doing a tour of the UK.
I guess while we're promoting UK bands, also Australian bands going to the UK. I've mentioned this band a few times. They're called the Deanies. They're a local Perth act with, I think all the parents are from the UK. They're doing a UK tour next month. So they're in London, Swansea, Birmingham. I think there might be one or two more, but they're called the Deanies. Check them out. Really good sort of Perth indie band, kind of with a British influence. So yeah, going back to the motherland. So if you can get a chance to see them, please do.
Well, we have just managed to tick over the hour with the two of us. Richard will be back next week as we obviously digest the Glasgow Derby. We host the Huns on Saturday, isn't it? It's Saturday. Be at the club, Paul. Is that the plan? Or
I will be at the CSC, so some pints will be imbibed. Hopefully, I'm not wearing any this time, like last time. But I'll take a pint. I'll take a pint down the front if we win another one. I get the So yeah.
What was I say? If we store in the 22 seconds, I think we might be just swimming again. But hey, I'll take it. Thank you, everyone. We're just under 100 viewers live, so thank you very much for everyone getting involved. Again, if you're not sort of following us on all the socials, they're all down here. Paul and I are on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it. So if you want to give us a follow, we'll follow you back. We'll be back next week. Looking forward to it. It'll be a big one. Enjoy the build-up. Don't get sucked in by all the garbage mainstream press. And all that's left to say is hail, hail.
Hail, hail.